That's me. Thanks for coming down to the session today. We know that there's plenty of places that you can be on a Friday morning, so we're honoured to have you here. Appreciate you battling the tubes, the weather, and hopefully you made better outfit choices than I did with the rain today. So I want to spend a bit of time talking about how we can approach measurement. So some of the bigger thinking that Mike's just talked you through, how can we apply that to our everyday? And how can we take practical steps to either start measuring, grow, or scale? So we can start simple. Why measurement? So it's likely that everyone in this room knows why we measure, but can never be too careful. So measurement, firstly, is foundational, or should be foundational to all of our marketing activity. So the way that we interpret data, the way that we run our marketing needs to be based off fact, and the insights that derive from good measurement need to be well understood and interpreted across the business. We integrate data through a myriad of different platforms, of which we'll talk about a few today, although I'm not going to focus too heavily on specific solutions. The odd one will come up. So no matter how complex our business, we're likely running lots of pieces of software on our sites, our apps, and through our marketing. And to some degree, data will be collected through each of these platforms. I'm sure we're all aware of that as well. And fundamentally, measurement and data is supposed to be informative. So we're supposed to be deriving insight from the data. After all, that is the purpose of data. And again, I'm sure you're all aware, our landscape continues to evolve and become much more complex. So privacy, everyone's favorite subject, especially if you spend a lot of time talking to legal teams about GDPR. GDPR is almost 10 years old. So if you think back to 2016 and what we now know about privacy and how to approach that, it's completely different. The platforms I've just mentioned, the technology within our organizations is becoming increasingly more diverse, but with that, much more disparate. So yes, we're collecting more data, but often that is in silos and disconnected. And I'm sure on Sunday evening, while we were all watching Antiques Roadshow, we'd never even considered conjoining the words deep and seek. And by Monday afternoon, we were all discussing whether Tiananmen Square had actually happened and how LLM models such as DeepSeek are going to change the landscape. By Tuesday, I'm sure we're all back using Google Gemini, of course. And yeah, with that comes the complex ecosystems, and it wouldn't be a presentation in 2025 without talking about AI and how important that is, either as an end user of AI or the data we're feeding into marketing platforms that help us make use of data, plot our campaigns, and so on and so forth. So a question that I will ask to the room, rhetorically, we've got as much data as we ever had, but are we making better decisions? And the simple answer for most of us is no. And the reason we know that is because analytics gets brought to the forefront in Excel reports. We're doing ad hoc analysis within Excel or Google Sheets, and we're reporting back to the business in slides. And we were doing that 15 years ago and even longer back. And this is playing out in each of our organizations as well. So the two numbers here are actually quite scary, but reassuring at the same time, and I'll come back to that in a second. So 89% of business leaders value data literacy within their organizations. So they're putting it front and center of any decision making within their business operations. And then 60% of employees don't feel confident working with data. And fundamentally, that's not because we're all idiots and we don't know how to interpret data. It's just becoming much more overwhelming. As I mentioned, the landscape is developing at a rate of knots where we're trying to chase and catch up rather than lead. And as I mentioned, although those figures are problematic and quite stark, it should give us some reassurance that if you feel like you're in that boat, I won't ask you to raise your hands if you feel like that, but there'll be many other people in the same boat with you. So I'm sure that we can all sympathise to a few of these issues on the right-hand side. So our faith in data is often very low. And just as an example, how many times have we, mid-campaign, realised that our tracking is not set up correctly, data is partial, or even worse, missing entirely? And you've probably spoken to some of my team on how to resolve it, but the ship has sailed by that point. So data is often not in tune with wider business context. So anything relating to human behaviour, user experience, societal shifts, market factors, business impact, value, often lacking from the wider story that we tell with data. And I'm going to have to read this quote because I don't want to get it wrong. But if you've ever seen The Big Short, it's a movie about fraud and deception, and I don't want you to read too much into that, but there's a quote right at the beginning, and it says, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." So essentially, humans, where I'm going with this, is humans have inherent bias. So the way that we report and derive insights often relate to our own interests, whether we're doing that overtly or otherwise. The quote in the movie is attributed to Mark Twain. If you do some research, Mark Twain never said those words, just to prove the point. So the blueprint, the title of the event, how do we approach some of these challenges? It can often feel like quite an overwhelming challenge to take on. And yeah, let's be honest, there's a lot of work to do, but we can break it down into a few key areas. So foundational data and analytics. So we can't stress enough how important it is to send accurate and correct data into our platforms, into our reports, into anywhere where we're consuming data. Otherwise, we never get to insights and we never get to application. Even if the data that we're sending into platforms is automated and AI-driven, and even more so in that case. So you've mentioned Mike talk about trash in, trash out. There's garbage in, garbage out. There's CISO, which I won't go into what that stands for, but you can all guess. You'll hear these terms, and it'll probably come up through the day. Without good quality data, everything else that follows will fall down. We also need to align any measurement and data capture to long-term measurement strategies that satisfy your own business KPIs and objectives. So it's highly doubtful that, as Mike was saying, that your CEO is going to be too bothered about your engagement rates. Although useful for more tactical work and teams, not the type of thing that totally aligns up to that level and with wider business objectives. And then mapping solutions and insights at the right time and the right scale. So there's a lot of different shapes and sizes of businesses in this room. Going straight for AI and spending potentially hundreds of thousands on big ticket solutions wouldn't necessarily be firstly appropriate or possible. So mapping the plan with solutions that are right for your business at the right time. And there's nothing to say that you can't do experimentation work whilst you're learning how to progress forward as well. So it's not necessarily a strict linear process. And then as a business, you've got to put faith in the data and decide exactly how you're going to use this data and activate it within each of your marketing channels. And I think this slide is fairly self-explanatory, but what you can't see of the iceberg really underpins everything else that's visible within the business. So I know we're not allowed to talk about dashboards too much after Mike's session, but the data quality in a dashboard or in a platform or through a tag or in anywhere that you measure, record data and report out of is fundamentally governed by good infrastructure and tech, good process, and refining that process. So not a set and forget. Accessibility of the data and democracy, it's quite easy to gatekeep data within a business, and that's something that we see within analytics teams quite a lot, and it's quite a hard thing to do, and it's a big challenge, but vital if we're going to get everybody comfortable and confident with data literacy. So how can we make that kind of strategy a reality? So you may have already heard about our Outperform framework and our value proposition. And the analytics team is following exactly that with measurement. So not just growing your marketing and delivering on-target results, but outperforming them. And one thing that we've had to do in recent months is, address the way that our team at Incubeta are structured. And in line with practicing what we preach, we've got to structure our teams differently. So we've brought together colleagues from across our EMEA region, which gives us access to data scientists, engineers, implementation specialists, consultants, and project management. And each of those individuals within those teams can work collaboratively across markets, giving us greater agility and bringing specialists with specific technical experience into the room at the right time. And further to that, being technology agnostic. So appreciating that, yes, we're at Google today and we'll do a lot of talking about Google solutions, and that's great. But we also know that in this room you'll be working with heaps of other technology within your businesses. And we want to create value. So not just setting up tracking for the sake of it, giving it real business value, as we've discussed in the previous slides. And generally a very simple framework again of how, and I'll drill down into each of these sections in a second. We assess, so we're understanding your challenges within your business. Mentioned all of those things together in terms of business context, market factors, technology. What dependencies do you have? What budgets do you have? Who do we need to speak to about delivering X? Having those conversations through a workshop type engagement and coming out with maturity assessment that leads into a strategy. So using the findings from that strategy to deliver a roadmap we can deliver over a longer period of time. So again, it's not coming to us a week after a campaign's launched and realizing you haven't got any data because the floodlight's broken. It's planning ahead of time, making sure that our measurement matches the key moments in our marketing calendar. And then simply at the end, we've got deliver. It's either delivering on your behalf or it's helping you improve your measurement, do some of the tactical and technical delivery. And with the assessment phase, we'll simply work to a data maturity framework similar to this. So we'll spend time embedding ourselves into your business through a workshop or several sessions where we can dig really deeply into your, as I mentioned, business objectives, tech stack, and all that good stuff. And we'll plot you within the framework that you see here in the curve. And then with that, we can plot specific solutions of how you can move from building to emerging to accelerating and leading. And to link this back to our own value proposition, recognizing what we can do in the next few weeks to gain rapid results and do some of the fundamentals great and quick. Realize what we can automate and spend more time on for midterm results, and then generate growth in the long term so that you outperform your targets. And the strategy, which I appreciate you're getting an eye test here, and we can talk about all of this when we go through to the roundtables a little bit later, But with the strategy, we get itemized, solution-specific moments in the calendar that we can index marketing to. So again, that might be retail peak. It might be other considerations within your marketing calendar. It might be tech work that needs to get done. And when you get the slides here, you'll be able to see within this example very specific work streams that are technology agnostic. And with delivery, yes, it's doing the thing. You're doing the stuff and delivering implementation or consultancy, but it's also indexing this to business value. So it's saying if we deliver solution X, it will result, your results will be X pounds of value. So to wrap up this section, simply put, our approach to measurement just needs to change. I think we recognize that the industry is moving at a rate of knots, and it's kind of hard to keep up with all of the changes. So taking a step back now will really set us on a good track for the next 12 months and beyond. And I won't go into each of these specific points, but I've got the roundtables later, and I'm looking forward to speaking a little bit more in detail about how we can activate your measurement plan with you. So yeah, thank you very much for listening to this talk. And if you've got any questions, I'll be milling around. I'll be on table 1 a bit later as well if you want to come and bug me.